A very, very warm welcome to all of you here. I know this is not the best time to have a session. I'll try my best not to go too deep. I promise you that I'll try to make it as interesting as possible, right? So, very good afternoon. My name is Yang Meng. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect from AWS. I take care of enterprise customers in Singapore, mainly in the banking, insurance, and payment sector. Right? Today, I'm super excited to have one of my customers, Uma, CIO of Banking Computer Services, BCS, to be on stage with me to share with you guys more about what BCS does and what BCS has done with us on AWS. So let's get started, right? So in today's session, we will be talking about landing zones, essentially, right? So I'll cover what exactly is landing zone and why are they important, right? I'll also speak about what is Control Tower, how can Control Tower help you quickly set up your landing zone. I'll also speak about how Control Tower controls can help you quickly set up guardrails and secure your landing zone, along with security services that can be integrated with it, right? And some features of landing zone before I hand over to Uma, who will introduce what is BCS, what BCS does, and what BCS have worked with us to build on AWS on landing zone. Now, what is a landing zone, right? When I first heard this term landing zone, I'm not sure about you guys, but what I had the impression is a helipad, right? You know, where helicopters land, right? And it made no sense to me, right? What has helicopter got to do with AWS, with the cloud, right? But I realized for a fact that it's actually not that far from that, right? Let me give you an analogy, right? So I'm sure, you know, for those who are here who flew into Singapore, right, you would have gone through the Singapore Changi Airport, right? So now imagine that, you know, you're an architect of the airport, right? And you're tasked to design this airport, right? There's certainly going to be a lot of things that you need to consider, right? Things like the air traffic, right? What are the rules to determine which plane can land, right? Which terminal should they taxi to, right? The passengers, right? How will they pass through the airport? How do you segregate those who are departing from those who are arriving, right? And where are they collecting their baggages? How are you going to lead them through all the way? Think about the additional security and compliance that needs to be in place, right? You know, around things like quarantine areas, right? Customs, all these things, right? Think about the security protocols, right? That needs to be activated in times of, you know, say an incident, right? So this is a huge investment, right? The Singapore Changi Airport takes in more than 8 million passengers from hundreds of countries around the world, right? Before you open, you know, this gateway to the world, you want to ensure that it's designed to operate at peak efficiency, right? So with the highest security controls as well, right? Because it's the foundation to, you know, how people come in and out of the country, right? So you might be wondering, right, how is this all related to AWS, right? So as part of your journey to the cloud, right, the landing zone at its core, right, is the foundation to where all your workloads are going to land in, right? Hence, landing zone, right? So now, imagine planes as network packets, right? Coming from all around the world, and terminals are like your applications, right? Similar to the Control Tower, right? Where, you know, you gotta direct the traffic, you have rules and processes on how you determine where the planes are gonna taxi to, right? Which areas you need to fence up, right? They're gonna be areas where it's restricted areas. Which areas are exposed to the public and so on, right? What security controls you are going to apply at the different points, and what kind of telemetry you want to collect from all this, right? So to add on to that, let's take a look at landing zone in the context of modern cloud-native approaches, right? So we all know that a modern cloud-native approach is the key to build applications that are scalable, flexible, highly resilient, you know, that you have applications that quickly respond to customers' needs, right? So what you're seeing over here is a mental model of a cloud-native journey, right? So you see words like, you know, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, DevSecOps, microservices, auto-scaling, everything as a service, so on and so forth, right? So what really is important here to achieve it is the idea of developers' freedom, right? You want the ability, you want them to ideate quickly, right? You want to move fast, but you also want to remain secure. So this is why a landing zone is so important, right? You want a way to establish guardrails, right? Such as defining the number of accounts, the CIDR range available, the subnets, the guardrails, and all these things, right? So you want to build a solid foundation where these standards is the starting point for new development and ideation with some of these new native cloud capabilities that you want to embark on, right? You want to reach a point where you have developers coming up to you one day, right, and say, hey, I want to experiment with serverless data analytics tools. I want to use Glue, I want to use Redshift, these kind of things, right? So, and you want to be like, oh, sure, go ahead, right? Some of these things might be quite scary, right? You want to be able to sleep well at night, right, knowing that these people are doing things in your environment, and you have guardrails in place, you have policies, so you know for sure that your developers can do it in a way that they do not expose any data or vulnerabilities to your environment, right? So we also saw that successful cloud initiatives are typically built on top of some of these elements, right? Scalable, resilient, adaptable, and highly secure, right? So what do I mean by that? So your landing zone needs to be able to support different kinds of use cases, right? Say if project teams want to run on containers, right, on Fargate, for example, right? You have a blueprint available that already clearly define how you're going to scale out, right? Look at the networking aspects. What is the networking behavior? How do you prevent exhaustion of your IP addresses, right? How do you do your task placement strategy, right? Are you going to do it in a multi-AZ across multiple AZs? All these should already be in place as blueprints, right? And these are available as self-service, right? So that project teams doesn't need to keep checking with security, with infra, what are the configurations and they can use, and you also ensure consistency in the organization. So, and we all know that business requirements change very fast, right? In cloud-native approach, the changes are meant to be fast, right? So for those in large enterprises, I'm sure you would have gone through the pain of sitting through a change of approval board for every single change that you need to introduce to the architecture, right? So with a landing zone, these processes will evolve, right? When you look at things like infrastructure as code, where the entire infrastructure is defined in code, right? Under a version control system, right? Which means that every change can be versioned and tracked through a similar approval process, right? This gives greater confidence, right, that the infrastructure is consistent, right? There is transparency, there's accountability, right? And that this, for each of these changes that's happening in the landing zone. And last but not least, right, most importantly, the landing zone has to be highly secure, right? A key feature of the landing zone is the ability to set foundational security and compliance baselines, right? So these are foundational guardrails. They are enforced automatically, right, across your entire organization and gives confidence that nobody can deviate from this organizational security and compliance posture. So these baselines are usually aligned with various compliance frameworks, such as CIS, NIST, and in the context of Singapore, you have MAS TRM guidelines, MAS cyber hygiene, that will give you this real-time visibility over some of your compliance status, right? It should be out of the box in landing zone. So this is what a sample high-level multi-account landing zone pretty much looks like on AWS, right? Every organization's landing zone will look different, right? Depending on your unique requirements, your infrastructure considerations. And as you can imagine, there is a large number of design choices that will go into this landing zone design. And it's non-trivial undertaking, right? To manually put all these basic building blocks, right? As you know, AWS gives you basic building blocks and you have to put them together, right? So it's not easy. Organizations need powerful capabilities, right? Designed and built by experts, encoding years of experience, knowledge, and best practices, all easily accessible. So the good news here is that there are quite a few AWS services that can help you to automate some of these components, right? I'm sure you guys have heard Control Tower, right? AWS Control Tower is the easiest way to set up and govern a multi-account AWS environment. Essentially, it automates the setup of a landing zone. So it's opinionated, it's prescriptive, it's based on AWS best practice, and it's designed to accelerate your cloud journey. So it also centralizes your identity and access management via IAM Identity Center, right? So that's the AWS SSO that was previously known as. So you can bring your own identity provider, right? So if you have your own IDP, you can plug it in and be integrated into the landing zone as well. So it also sets up an account factory, right? That allows you to quickly vend new accounts, right, through Control Tower with, and these new accounts will have established guardrails already in place, right? That you specify, things like you ship all your logs to a centralized logging account so that you have visibility over what's going on in your environment, right? And Control Tower also established controls and guardrails, right? These are things that you get out of the box, right? That you can ensure the compliance of the accounts in your environment. So on top of all these, Control Tower manage all these continuously, right? Something that is really different from what you get on-premise, right? So you have real-time visibility into your compliance status, right? So what does Control Tower gives you essentially, right? So it gives you an orchestration layer, right, that makes use of capabilities from other AWS services like organizations, service catalog, IAM Identity Center, right? And from the management account, it uses service catalog, like I mentioned, as an account factory to vend you new accounts. And these new accounts come with network and account baseline already in place, right, that you define. And it also gives you 2 additional shared accounts, right? These are the log archive account where you centralize your CloudTrail config logs centrally in this log archive account. You want to secure this account, acting like a log bunker, right? To secure it, nobody can make any changes. There's traceability, visibility, transparency, right? And you also have an audit account, which acts as your security account for cross-account audit and centralized security operations, right? So from this point onwards, you will need to extend this out based on your business and technical needs, right? So Control Tower gives you this basic starting point, right? And you have to continue to evolve this landing zone according to principles and best practices, right? Which typically involves creating additional accounts, things like a shared account where you put common services into it. You have centralized CI/CD pipelines, centralized networking, right? So I'll show you a few reference architectures of how some of these might look like, right? But again, every organization is different with different kind of requirements, right? So you could have a shared services account, right, to house common services, right, that you use across multiple accounts, right? Things like AWS Systems Manager, right, to manage OS patching across all your instances, right? You also have, like, if you have directory services, they could also be part of your shared services account. So if you look at it from a networking perspective, this is something that's really important, right? At the center of it, you would have transit gateway, right, to connect all the various accounts and acts as a central hub for all traffic and routing across your organization, right? So you could use things like network firewall, which is a stateful managed firewall for things like deep packet inspection, domain filtering, intrusion prevention, and so on, right? So there are actually many different types of deployment models available, right? With network firewall, like as mentioned in the previous session, right? If you were here, right? You could go for distributed inspection model, you could go for centralized, or combination of both, right? So we also see customers having a centralized DevOps or DevSecOps kind of account, right? To host all their repositories, right? And automated pipelines. So you have things like image scanning tools, right? We have Inspector for that. You have SAS, basically static code analysis. You have DAS, dynamic security testing, done over here, right? And if any vulnerabilities are found, it will stop the pipeline and it will fail, right? So you will throw back to the developers to fix some of these things. So if it's all good, you can promote the artifacts using cross-account roles to various workload accounts there. So as mentioned earlier in Control Tower, your cloud admins and end users can automatically provision accounts, and it comes with a set of preventive guardrails that you can put into the account by Control Tower, right? So Account Factory is a configurable template that helps to standardize the provisioning of new accounts, pre-approve account configurations, right? Think of things like your CIDR range configurations, which regions are you approved to launch things in, right? So Control Tower also provides controls, which are pre-configured governance rules, right? And these are expressed in plain English, right, to provide abstraction over granular AWS policies. I'll show you some examples of this. But essentially, there's 3 types of controls, right? You have preventive control on the top left. So preventive controls really prevent you from actually doing anything that is harmful, right? And this is implemented by service control policies. You have detective controls as well. So detective gives an alert after it has been performed, right? And these are implemented using AWS Config and Security Hub. So with proactive controls, you actually scan the environment through CloudFormation hooks before they are even provisioned, right? So they are even prevented from being provisioned into the environment. So these are just some examples of the controls that I spoke about, right? So we have a long list of controls, 300 plus over, right? And there's a few categories, as you can see, mandatory, strongly recommended, and elective controls. Essentially, mandatory controls are always enforced, right? You cannot turn them off, right? So for example, you see it on the 3rd row, right? You don't want any member accounts to disable your AWS config in the account, right? You want to have that consistency in your account. So as we talk about controls, I want to quickly run through like shared responsibility model. I'm sure you guys have seen various variations of this, right? So if you look at the area below the dotted line, AWS is recognized as highly secure environment, passing the highest security scrutiny, right? Our infrastructure is monitored 24/7, offers multiple fault isolation, right? Capabilities to improve resilience and allow encryption in the data flowing across the network before it even leaves our secured facilities, right? So anything related to security off the cloud, that's AWS responsibility. Anything at the north of the dotted line, that's a customer's responsibility, right? Which controls you choose, which controls you turn on, right? How are you going to encrypt your data? So that's customer's responsibility. So as with that said, right, AWS has a large variety of building blocks to help you build security into your architecture, right? So instead of giving you a solution, right, a security solution that can do everything, right, AWS takes the opposite of that rigid platform approach to security. So instead, we select from a wide portfolio of integrated security services and partner solutions, which you can customize and automate, right, to help you achieve the appropriate level of security for your own organization. So again, these are some of the, in all your workloads created by Account Factory, right, you would have some of these security services inbuilt, right? I don't have the time to go through each one of these in detail, but we do have a lot of resources, right? We have the security reference architecture, we have white papers, AWS documentation that you can find out more about our security services. Or perhaps, it's even better if we show you some of our customers who built their landing zone with us, right? And get them to share a bit more. So over the past 9 months, I had the honor to work with one of the brightest and most forward-looking CIO, right? And together with AWS professional services, right? NETS BCS has put together all the good stuff that I just spoke about, right, into a cloud-native landing zone to host one of their critical applications on AWS. Please welcome Umar Sankar from Banking Computer Services, who will talk to you more about what they built on AWS.
Thank you, Young Meng. Good evening, all. Good afternoon. Nice session after lunch, so I'll try to make it interesting. My name is Umar Shankar. I'm from BCS. Before I go into who BCS, what BCS does and who we are, maybe I'll just walk through on a daily life of a Singaporean, person in Singapore. You might have, just before this session, you might have made a cashless payment for your lunch, or a hawker center, or just using a QR code, or you might have transferred money to your friend without even knowing his account details through PayNow, or even if you know the account number, you would have used the fast fund transfer, the fast secure fund transfers to transfer money, or every month end you'll be so happy to see your salary credit to Gyro. If you are facing all these scenarios in life, then you are working very closely with BCS, because BCS is a national payment operator, and we are a wholly owned subsidiary of the NETS group. We manage and operate key payment infrastructure for Singapore, including FAST, Interbank Gyro, SGQR, PayNow, and check truncation system. With BCS providing the backbone to all digital transfers of money between individual to individual or organization to organization, the central banks, clearing houses, and commercial banks in Singapore leverage on the payment rail infrastructure and card network in Singapore to provide end users and corporate clients payment solutions in Singapore. As a traditional organization with a traditional infrastructure and technology, we do face challenges. Quite a little bit of challenges which I try to cover here. One of the items is if we have to provision or onboard and set up a new infrastructure, we have to do everything manual, and it leads to a longer time to market, which means there is a longer time for delivering our services to the customers. Given the recent COVID-19 lockdown and pandemic situation, there was a lot of disruptions to the supply chain, which meant the hardware delivery had a huge delay and expensive as well, right? And with the traditional model, if we have to deliver any new system, we needed a huge upfront cost, capital expenditure, capital investment to onboard and set up our infrastructure. And also with the traditional model, there is a lot of loss in productivity and increased cost due to differentiated skills like backup, patching, and all those stuff, which deviates away from the real focus of delivering features to the customers. And with limited automation available, especially for the security configurations, if we have to set up a new environment, we have to repeat the security configurations manually, which also is error prone because of human interventions. So how did we avoid, or how did we overcome all these challenges? Thanks to AWS landing zone, I don't need to build the airport, but I would just safely land my planes and provide terminals to the customers. So as we wanted to embark into our digital transformation journey, we worked with the AWS professional services to build this landing zone, which paved a way as a basic foundation for our transformation journey. I don't want to go into the details of each and every item in this, but since Yang Meng has already covered in detail, the core is the management account, which comes specifically for this landing zone, which has quite an important features like control tower and account factory. The account factory is what I would like to call out, because it has a template of services through which I can automatically provision new accounts and services within minutes, compared to the days and months of the traditional model. With the log archive account, I can ensure that all the logs are centralized, and it can be used to track API activities, configuration changes, and any other suspicious activities happening on my account. This also serves as a log bunker for us to securely retain audit traces. The security ops account hosts security-related services like guard duty and inspector. For example, the inspector ensures that the traffic coming in from external world into our systems are inspected and ensure that there is no malicious activities. The DevOps account is a typical continuous integration and continuous deployment enabler. The DevSecOps is one of the buzzwords nowadays in the market. The centralized DevOps account has a single source of truth through the centralized code repository, and this improves collaboration between teams. The shared services account is, it hosts all the shared services which can be used by multiple accounts like the cloud HSM, the Route 53 resolver, various VPC endpoints, and other stuff. Coming back to the networking hub, this is where it acts as a foundational network infrastructure for the landing zone. This includes the network connectivity from the cloud environment to the on-premise environment, and most importantly, the network firewall. The AWS network firewall offers a flexible rule engine through which we can create thousands of granular firewall rules, which ensures that we can inspect all the traffic coming in, in a single point. It acts as a centralized hub for the security and compliance team to ensure that our system is secure at all times. And the prod and non-prod accounts are the real workloads which host our payment applications. And this is what the terminals which Young Meng referred as. So the rest of the airports, I really don't need to worry about. So with this AWS landing zone, which we built in partnership with AWS, how exactly it helps for us for our success? Before that, before we had this AWS infrastructure, we had a longer waiting time for our new infrastructure to be provisioned. But with this landing zone, the developers can provision or spin up a new infrastructure within minutes. The manual process is to scale up and duplicate new accounts in the traditional way. With AWS, it becomes infrastructure as code, template based, and you can spin up instances in minutes. Security configuration, given that we are a key payment operator for the entire nation, security is utmost important for us. And building that security configuration for every infrastructure we bring up is quite tedious and error prone as well. So with the AWS landing zone, the security best practices are baked in every template and every application service. Even if there are changes to the, say for example, MAS, TRMG guidelines or the cyber hygiene guidelines, it requires changes only in the template, and we can very quickly apply to all the workloads. During the COVID situation, there was one challenge we faced is where the developers had challenges to come into our office network and then be productive. So with AWS Workspace, we can create a secure working environment remotely, and we can avoid the challenges of such a pandemic situation. One of the items one of the drawbacks in traditional infrastructure is where there are a lot of heavy lifting we have to do. For example, we have to take care of the patching, backup, and other maintenances. With AWS managed services, those heavy lifting is already transformed, or the responsibility is already handled by AWS, and as an organization, our team can focus on the key payment solutions provider and avoid all the weightlifting. It's not only those, and then with respect to the operations, how AWS landing zone improved us to be quite efficient. The templates, the repeatable or reusable templates applicable for the security features and the automations tools available ensures that we are more secure, reduce human configurations error, and the team can focus on the critical business infrastructure issues. The automated infrastructure and application security checks enable continuous enforcement of the security and compliance control. Once security is implemented, it's also quite important that we always keep it as a continuous improvement, continuous monitoring and enhancing. AWS provides quite a number of tools which helps us to detect any malicious intent or malicious activity on our systems, and also ensures that whether our systems are compliant to all the latest regulations and other guidelines. This way, we ensure that our workload is always secure and we can focus on the operational issues and quite efficient in delivering solutions to the national industry. Apart from security, as a key payment infrastructure, it's also quite important that we are highly available and resilient with our payment solutions. With the resiliency features available in AWS Landing Zone, we are able to detect failures or detect anomalies quite fast and can recover faster. So this ensures that we avoid any disruptions to the industry in providing our payment solutions. So with this digital transformation journey using AWS Landing Zone, using a cloud-native approach to software development, we fundamentally change the speed and efficiency on how we deliver payment solutions. It's not only on the technology and architecture, but with respect to the people, process, and culture, the entire cloud-native approach, the impact will be felt across the entire organization and significantly affect the organization culture as we embark on reskilling and upskilling the programs. With the new technology like AWS Landing Zone, AWS Control Tower, and others, the teams are very much interested in learning the new skills and upskilling themselves. At the same time, we make the automation and the guardrails helps to increase organizational agility without compromising on the security and compliance. As a national payment operator, security and compliance posture is utmost important. To conclude, as Yang Mang already said, we don't focus on building the airport. We build the terminals and we help the flights to come and land safely so that as the nation payment users, you can sit back, relax, and do your fund transfers. So with this, I'll pass on to our friend, Yang Mang.
Thank you, Uma. Right. So just to quickly round up, right? Key takeaways, right? Landing zone. It's where you begin, right? It's where you build your solid foundation, right? We have a lot of resources available. Do check out our security reference architecture, right? It's a great resource to get you started on landing zone as a whole, right? And you can also learn more about what we spoke about with AWS training and certification. Visit Skill Builder. You can explore 600 over free digital courses, right? Hands-on led and more, right? And thank you so much for attending our session, right? Please remember to fill out the session survey to help us improve the summit experience for you. Thank you very much.